Hello, and welcome to Megan's Mystical Mashup, a conversation about life, the universe, and anything in between. Welcome to today's show. I'm happy to see you here. I'm Megan Rounds. Let's rock this house. Today's guest hails from Bel Air, Maryland, where she lives with her husband of 17 years, 2 kids, and 2 doggies. She's a big fan of crystals and cooking. She owns and operates the Crystal Reiki Center, which is a place for crystal Reiki, psychic and medium readings, as well as healing. She also offers health and manifestation coaching. If you attended the last Bliss Retreat, you got an experience. You experienced Amber's amazing skills in person. I can personally attest to her awesomeness. She's been a member of the Lightworkers Lab for just about as long as it's been around. Her main modalities are clairaudience, claircognizance, clairvoyance, and healing, and you're most likely to find her either in the main lab or in the circle. Please give a warm Lightworkers welcome to the Chakra Diva, Amber Poole. Oop, there she is! Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Well, welcome on the show. Welcome to the show. I am like really mashing up words today, so this should be really entertaining on multiple levels.
I hope it's just like it was yesterday. Lots of excitement everywhere.
Oh, definitely. I always do a tech test with guests to make sure that everything's working properly before we go live. And so that's what Amber's referring to. We had a nice conversation and I kept saying, no, we can't do the conversation yet. We have to wait for tomorrow. But that was really hard to do.
Yeah.
So very awesome. Well, thanks again for taking the time to talk. And I always start out the show with a big question, and it could very well take the rest of our time. And that is about tell us about either your path to the Lightworkers Lab or your spiritual journey, whichever is longer. I'm assuming the spiritual journey is longer, but sometimes maybe it isn't.
My spiritual journey is definitely longer, but I have to say, I came to the lab because I did a general search. I can't remember what I was looking for. It was like on Google or something like that. And I found Crystal on YouTube and I watched her and I was mesmerized by her. And I was like, oh my God, I want to know her. And she was giving away a scholarship, which I thought was amazing. And I've never entered a scholarship in my life, but I just felt so like Crystal has that, you know, those gooey eyes that just like kind of draw in and you want to know more. So I applied and then I got this wonderful email that she accepted me and I was like, what do you mean? I'm in the crew. So I think it was shortly after she opened up the lab to the public. I think she had it, right? Am I right on that? I think she had it like under wraps for a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it was invite only or something. My friend had been a part of it before I did, and she was one of the early members, but I joined around the same time I think you did, where it became open and there were some classes that were offered. What program did you take? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Any clue? No, I don't. I'm not sure. But I never left, you know, and there's a lot of groups that you go into and you're like, what else? And you leave. But in the lab, I've always been intrigued. I've always learned a lot from other people, and it's just been an amazing experience. So I just wanted to give a shout out of how I did come here.
Excellent.
And able to be a moderator for the group. Love it.
Oh, I forgot to add that. Yes.
Yeah, moderator. So I'm also moderator for the circle now.
Oh, great. Wow.
My territory is the circle.
Okay.
My spiritual journey, on the other hand, which is a little bit long, I could always see colors around people when I was little. And I didn't realize that other people couldn't see colors until we went to church. My mom took me to church one day, and the pastor had this beautiful green aura, like this emerald, so shiny. And I said, Mom, I've never seen anything like that. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you know, the green. Have you ever seen the green? And I didn't realize that other people didn't see colors. It just occurred to me.
Yeah.
And, right? Like, I just assumed everybody saw what I saw.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's not like people walk up to you and say, I can't see color.
Right. So my mom was really open, so I was very thankful for that. So she went out and bought me the Ouija board. She's like, I don't know what to do with you, but I know you have this. So she brings home the Ouija board. I invite my friends. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And we start playing with the Ouija board. And, the spirits came in and there was a car accident. And my mom's like, what did you just pick up? And I showed her all of this information. I said, there was these boys in a car. They got into an accident. This is the... And she goes, you cannot play that ever again. So she throws that out, which actually she for a basement that appears like 3 or 4 times, even though we got rid of it. And she put me into tarot card reading. She's like, I think you're supposed to be here, right? So she finds this shop and puts me in a tarot card reading. And I am probably 10, 11, and everybody else is in their 40s. They're smoking cigarettes outside. And I'm like, what am I doing here? So my mom didn't understand. I didn't understand. So we kind of grew together. So I've always had that interest, I guess.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. And then what happens is or at least for me, I closed all my gifts down because I realized that I was not normal. And so now I'm a healer. And one of my clients came to me and she said, Amber, I remember in 8th grade, you were telling us that you see colors everywhere. And I thought you were crazy. And can you believe that I go to you now? And I'm like, right, that's good.
That's a really cool full circle,
It is. It definitely is. Yes. So it's kind of like keep your light up. Don't dim your light.
Yeah.
Just be, it's fantastic. I like it a lot.
Well, and so how do you remember how old you were when you closed your gifts down, or do you remember making a conscious decision to do that?
When I started liking boys.
Ah, okay. Because you didn't want
Right.
the rejection, or it was, yeah.
Couldn't say hey, and I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I would like sit in my bed and I would channel. So I had books and journals. I would talk to Jesus all the time, and everything that I heard, I would write down. And I actually, so I had an experience for me where, and I didn't understand it because there's nobody you can really talk to. There's not like mentors. It's not like you can go and Google. This is before AOL.
Oh, yesterday when Amber and I were practicing, the lights in her room were surging, which I took credit for because they always surge when I wasn't in her room, but, in a sense I was. She started seeing people around me and things like that. So her and I, when we talk, seem to have quite an intense, in a positive way, connection, or energetically strong connection. Let's put it that way. And so I suppose I shouldn't be completely surprised that that happened. But so in the meantime, hi everybody who has joined since I started the show, and welcome. I hope all of you are doing well this wonderful Thursday, and I'm happy that you were able to join me for this special edition. I once a month am now planning to do this special edition on Thursday afternoons. And Amber's back, so just to finish that off, I do it once a month on Thursdays, and then I continue to have my regular mashups on every other Saturday. So I also have one this coming Saturday. And okay, I'm going to bring Amber back on. Okay, here she comes. I was telling everybody how yesterday we had a strong energetic connection.
Crazy around here. It's only when I'm with you.
I know. What is that?
I haven't had any issues all day, so I'm sorry. I could
No
hear
worries.
everything you said. I don't know what happened to me.
Well, okay, so we'll just try it again.
Okay.
So we're going to keep this energy stable. Okay, so when you I think you were talking about writing everything down, that you talked to Jesus a lot and you were channeling things.
Yes. So that's how my mom got me a book on how to meditate for dummies. And
so
in
cool.
that book said that you're supposed to start journaling. So I started journaling, and I love talking to Jesus. And one night I had a bad experience. right? You know, as kids are so open, right? So you are gathering the good, you're also gathering everything in between. And you don't know, my mom talked to me about like protection and things like that. But one night and I've always been scared of my closet. The closet always scared me.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I couldn't sleep in if I was awake. I had like those big double doors that would open up and you would just see darkness. And I was sleeping one night and I woke up and it felt like something was sitting on me and I had tears coming from my eyes.
Wow.
And I said, I need to be protected. I need protection. Jesus, where are you? And when I said, Jesus, where are you? This little white light being appeared to my right. Kind of looks just a white light. I can tell you the shape of it, right? But it was just a white being appeared, and it felt so loving and so good, and everything released off of me.
Oh.
And I said, oh, I want another one of those.
Yeah.
And another one appeared. And I said, can I have any more? And I only had 2, right? But that was enough. And I rolled over and I went back to sleep. So I tried to explain this to the boy that I liked. And he was like, what happened? That is so weird. Like, that doesn't happen. So I shut everything down. And number one, I had fear in me because I didn't understand and I didn't know what just happened. And 2, the boy I liked didn't approve. And if he didn't approve, well, I wasn't about to go further.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, and that makes perfect sense. And I have to say, Amber, that you brought forth a memory for me that I don't, or like a connection of a memory for me in your story that I don't think I've had before as far as the connection goes. I remember as a kid, I was in my room sleeping and we had a mirror outside of my bedroom. And there was it was so real, I'm going to call it a nightmare, but it was like this black cat jumped out of the mirror and it came up to me, put its head by my face, and it said, I am Gilgamesh and I'm going to kill your family. And I'm like, ah! So I got up and I checked on my sisters. I'm like sitting there listening for them to breathe and everything. I go in my parents' room and listen and make sure that they're alive. I stayed awake the rest of the night. That could very well be when I closed my gifts down because it freaked me out completely. Yes. And then years later, when I was in college, I was sitting in a cultural or in an anthropology class, like an intro to archaeology class, and somebody mentioned the name Gilgamesh, and it triggered the name from that dream because I knew the name, but then I forgot it. And as soon as the professor said that name, I'm like, oh, I'm like it's like this weird. If I were in a movie, it'd be like the spotlight's on me and everyone else turns dark, and I'm just like. Like looking around, does anybody else, notice this name is like powerful? Anyway, I just had to tell that story because it just reminded me of the dream that I had. My mom was not the person who offered to assist me in those ways, but oddly enough, my grandmother, who was very Catholic, had pulled out a Ouija board when I was a kid and we played it, and we had results, and then Grandma promptly hid it in the basement, just like you.
We've hit it in the basement a few times, and it just kept appearing a few times.
Of course it does. It's like yeah, remember me? I'm still here.
Yes. Moved out of my parents' house. I was like, see ya.
Yeah. Did it stay?
With me. Yeah, actually, so my husband, we got our first apartment, and somehow in the apartment, I found a Ouija board, and I was like, this is not happening. It might have been our second apartment.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, this is not happening. Get it out. Because my husband and I are like night and day. You know how you always have a good balance between each other?
Good way to put it. Yes.
He grounds me.
That's funny. I say that about mine too. We've been married about as long as you have, a little longer.
Okay.
And it's like, yeah.
It's a really nice balance. And that's the only way I can say it. My daughter is a medium, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it's not something that we really talk about in our house, to be honest with you. We don't go around talking about deceased or anything like that. And my favorite story this is how I found out she was a medium, because it is through the lineup. So if your grandmother was very psychic as well, I asked my mom yesterday, I'm like, who's more psychic in our family that we don't know about? Because it has to be generational. And so again, the closet. So in my house now, I woke up and I see a shadow man, totally shadow man, look like my husband to a T. except he's Black Shadow. And when I made eye contact with him, he grabs my clothes like, and he was frightened that I could see him and he could see me. So he grabs my clothes and I go, what are you doing? Because I'm like, why is my husband black? Like, what's going on here? And like really, my head couldn't put it together because I was in that, when you're like shifting over and waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And so he disappears and I look over to next to me and my husband's not there, my real husband. Like, where's he at? Well, he's downstairs playing Call of Duty, like on the PlayStation. And it was only 11 o'clock. It wasn't even late. So I just fell asleep. So I said, look, there's a guy who looks like you who is in my closet. And he's like, just tell him to go away. Because, he's not into this. Just tell him to go away. And he's playing his Call of Duty. The next night, my daughter screams in the middle of the night, Mommy, there's a guy who's in our hallway and he looks like Daddy. And I was like, really? So here I'm like shoving my husband, like, look at that. We have a medium.
Wow.
And she says, is that a fairy? So my daughter she was probably, I'd say she's 7 now. She was probably 6 or 5. And she thought that's what fairies look like. And I just blurted out, no, that's a dead man. Fairy? No, that's a dead man. And she goes, what? I was like, it's okay, I'll take care of it. So my daughter.
Wow. That's fabulous. It's fabulous. My daughter is starting to show gifts too. We're not biologically related that way, so she's adopted. But I think that she chose our family in part because I was able to recognize this with her. And she asked me one day, Mommy, does everybody see auras in color? And so she knew what auras were, and I don't remember talking to her about that. But I'm like, well, honey, some can see them in color. I think everyone has the ability to, but they just haven't developed their gifts to that extent. And but I'm like, I can see things around people. I just don't see the colors very easily, but every now and again I can. But she's like, yeah. So I'm like, what's mine and what's Daddy's and what are the dogs? And she just is like, they're all a little slightly different. Daddy, she's got some. She's like, he's as gray and brown or black or something because she is. But anyway, she also has some what I think are budding healing gifts. And so like her hands tingle a lot, and her and I have worked on her a little bit, and she's worked on me, and she's really embraced that part of it, which I'm really happy about. She'll work on her friends and things, and I want her to be brought up feeling open to share that gift with with the world and not feel like she has to hide it. Whereas I think that I'm not exactly sure of what gifts I seem to have growing up, other than I think I closed them down pretty early.
Okay. And it's always okay to reopen them and say, I'm ready to step in.
Yeah.
How old is she?
She's 11.
Oh, that's a really good age. Everybody, you're so open, you're learning, you're gathering information all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Around the antenna.
Yeah. And now she started, it doesn't happen very often, but I suspect that she sleepwalks, which is kind of freaking us out. My husband had said that she woke up when he goes to bed later than I do, and she's walking up to the bedroom door and like put her pillow down there or something like that. And it's right in front of some stairs. So I'm just like, what? She doesn't remember any of that. And she went back to bed, and he's like, why did you do this? And she's like, I didn't do it. But anyway, so yeah, that one I'm not exactly sure what to do about it, but at the same point it's like, awareness is helpful for all of us, even her dad, who's kind of like, I don't really know if I believe in all of this, but I'm gonna trust that that you'll inform me anyway.
Yes. Right. My husband just looks at me. He even like in general, he's like, did you just leave a cemetery? Why did I just see you leaving a cemetery? Because we crossed paths. And I was like, well, I go to the cemetery. Maybe I didn't tell you guys this, but I go to the cemetery to deliver roses to the people. Oh, wow. And why would you do that? I'm like, because they're people too. Like, why would you do that? Who else is going to see them right now? Nobody else is seeing them. And he's like, don't you ever think about this, Amber? Like And it's interesting. So I go to deliver flowers to people who I don't know. And obviously they're not even alive. But I met somebody else there who does the same thing.
That's wonderful.
Weird.
Well, I've always been attracted to cemeteries. Any place I go to visit, I go to cemeteries.
Yeah.
And always have. I've always been drawn to them, never really understanding why. That's why I'm like, I think I closed down gifts that I wasn't aware of. And, but I go there and it's not like I really talk to people, but I felt their presence and always had positive experiences.
I do too.
Yeah.
I was in one section that I haven't, like, I didn't know anything about it, but wherever I go to and I hear stop, I get out of the car and I heard, "Excuse me, miss." And it was kind of like this low voice, like a boy. And I'm like, where am I going to? So I'm walking around and this lady starts running across the cemetery and she says, "I'm so sorry. Did you lose a child?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And she said, "You're in the children's section." And I didn't realize that they had a children's section there.
Oh.
So all of these tombstones are really, really old, like 1900s old kind of thing. And I said, "No." She's like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm dropping off flowers to people I don't know." And she said, "That's so sweet. I do the same thing." So we ended up forming a friendship to go there on Wednesdays and drop off flowers.
Well, how wonderful is that? Why? And
Yeah.
of course you formed a friendship. I mean, it's not like you're just going to encounter people who do that all the time.
Right? And she's alive. She's a real person. I made sure. I wasn't just visiting, just to visit.
Okay, so I mean, we went on a bit of a rabbit hole there. So going back to you were talking about protection and then you shut things down because of a boy. And then we kind of talked about your closet and stuff like that. So I don't think that was a part of that story. But so when you closed your gifts down, what came about that, I mean, did anything pop up even when they were closed down that you couldn't keep completely closed, or was there just a defining moment where things started to open up for you again?
My defining moment is 2012. I was miserable. I was miserable. I stayed home. So I was an executive assistant. I stayed home to raise my kids because we thought that something was wrong with my son. He had a breathing issue. So I felt like I was forced to stay home. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't in my plan. If God asked me what I was going to be doing,
Right.
I didn't get that memo because I thought I was going back to work. And we ended up struggling because we were on one income now, had 2 kids. So I went off into doing other things to create income. So like online businesses and things like that, which really, really stressed me out. And one night I was walking and everything went black. So I yelled, "Call 911," and I fall over. I can't speak. I can't move. And I'm in complete darkness. And as I'm in complete darkness, my first words were, "Am I dead?" Like, what just happened here? Am I dead? And I heard my guide, who I haven't heard in years, say, "No, you're not dead." I said, "Well, great." And I'm angry. Like, I'm angry talking to my guide. "Well, am I going to recover?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Great. I don't want to talk to you anymore." I'm like, I was just walking and you just knocked me out. So they said I had vertigo, but I ended up staying in my room for 3 weeks trying to recover. I couldn't walk. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. So I was in bed for 3 weeks. And while I'm in bed, I'm pissed off, right? Oh, can I say that? I'm mad. Sure. I'm mad because, I'm not able to move. And my husband's taking care of the kids. And all of a sudden, I have this out-of-body experience. So my body lifts up out of my house. I can see my husband. I can see my daughter in the kitchen. And I keep flying down the street. And I can see the cars passing. I know what's going on. And I'm like, I thought you guys told me that you weren't going to kill me, that I was going to be alive. So I'm still in this angry kind of state. And all of a sudden, it felt like I got the wind punched into me. And I went back into my body. It was so bizarre.
Wow.
So I started it gave me like motivation and momentum to get back to where my normalcy is. So I started pushing myself, getting out of bed, started walking, started doing things. So I go onto the internet, and I Googled how to get out of depression, because that's the only thing I can think of. I must be depressed because I don't know what's going on with me. And I found this energy healer online that said you have to clear out your chakras. And I was like, your chakras, what does that mean? She's like, well, if you clear out your chakras, you won't be depressed. And I was like, oh, well, I must be depressed. I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to get myself back together. And she said that she rubbed her hands, and then she felt her energy fields all around her. And I was like, this lady's crazy. I did the same thing. And I felt energy. That was the first time I ever felt energy. So I kept Googling magical hands, because Reiki was not a word that was there. You know what I mean? It was oh, I was doing Reiki and energy healing. I've only found this one lady who gave me a direction. So I called my mom and I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can I come over to your house? I'm going to test something out. And she's like, okay, let's do it. So she's laying down and I'm getting my hands all warmed up, and I go across her energy and I said, who's Bert? And she's like, Bert, that's the name of my first boyfriend. I was like, I don't know. That's weird. So I'm scanning her and I hear information. So I'm telling her all about herself. And she's like, Amber, I don't understand this. I was like, neither do I. So I called my stepmom. Can you lay down? And when my stepmom laid down, I got her father. So this is when I'm finding out, one, I'm psychic, really. Like, it's coming back. And number two, I'm a medium, which I didn't ever think about in my life before that moment. So her father comes in. I said, I never met her father, my stepmom's father. He passed away. And I said, he's talking about a train and some coins. And she's like, yes, he rode the train all the time, and he would collect the coins for me and give them to me. So I started delivering messages. And I'm like, this is really weird.
Wow.
So they started referring me out. I became a traveling energy healer. And that's what I've done since 2012.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's an interesting, a way to come about things.
Well, yeah. And so, I mean, first of all, what a profound life experience that seemed to reopen these for you. I mean,
myself.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Wow. Yeah, I got chills when you were talking about that. I have not had that experience, nor do I want to have that experience. And it's like, sometimes it's like, I'm trying to be really open. I'm trying to stay open. I think it's my default to close. I know it's my default to block. Just because that is, I'm an empath, and that I recognize that in order for me to cope, I just created my own defense mechanism, of like creating bubbles and things like that. And so now I'm really trying to break through those things so that I'm more open and receptive to all of the gifts. And what I find is, which relates to something else you said in your story, although you didn't necessarily word it that way, is trust. I love that you're like, okay, I can feel the energy. I want to practice or try this out on some other people. Let me try it out on you, and let me try it out on you. And then you trusted the things that came to you when you were doing that. And I'm just inspired by that. That's really cool. What was that?
It's called being naive.
Oh, well, that's a kind of naivety that I would like to have, I think.
Yeah, you just dive right in because you don't know. It's energy healing, right? Energy healing, I thought, was just, I'm channeling source through this person, and it's going to be all love and light. And guess what? It's not. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I remember getting angry at my guides. I turned around. The first time I encountered a quote attachment, right? I turned around and I said, are you kidding me? This is what I signed up for? And I always leave my client. I told you that yesterday. Yeah. Like, if I'm in a conversation with spirit, no matter who I'm talking to, I will leave a person on the table to figure out their own stuff for a second while I talk to spirit. So I turn around. I'm like, what is this? Are you kidding me? And I start just like yelling again. Kind of, I always think of myself as a little girl, like stomping my feet. Like, I'm so mad about this. And I was like, I'm not so sure I signed up for this, guys. And they're like, but you did.
You're just not aware of it.
Right. Yes, because you don't, like, most energy healers, you're starting off because you really want to truly help people. You know, you want to find what's going on. You want to give them the love, the support that they need. And then all this other stuff comes up and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. I keep thinking about, I don't know that everybody has the same belief, but, if we in fact do design our life experience in this incarnation, then, how detailed do we get with that? At what point is there space, within the boundaries that we may have created, or is it a big experiment? And I sometimes wonder if it isn't, I sometimes wonder if it is an experiment. I start to think about, it's like, well, what would we do if we gave her these filters to see the world, through these eyes, and then set these different conditions in place for her to experience, and let's see what happens. That'll be really fun.
Sure.
And yeah, I don't, it's not that I have that much free time. It's more like, that's what I do when I'm bored, is like, well, what if?
I think they set like major things. Like, I think I was supposed to be, for sure, an energy healer. And when I get, quote, off path, I got thrown back onto it. And then, because I have a lot of judgment with myself, probably because of growing up, you get turned, oh, she's psychic, oh, she does mediumship. Like, it's a very turned off thing. So I told my husband, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to be psychic anymore. And he's like, you can do that? I said, I'm just going to health coach. That's normal. That'll get me back into corporate. And he's like, do you want to be in corporate? And I'm like, not really. And then I was like, I have an epiphany. And he goes, what's that? I was like, I'm psychic. He goes, no. I said, so I'm just going to do what I've been given to do. Like, that's a gift. I'm just going to keep going with it. And I'm just not going to care. And I'm going to stick to my path.
Well, but I really appreciate that. And I think that what I hear in that is that you kind of have to try out different almost mindsets. I've done something similar where it's like, okay, I'm this and I'm that. And, I do have the ability to hear other people before they talk, or, like what's going on in their head. I usually know what they're going to say before they do it. Usually it's people I'm more connected with, but not always. And I do have these interesting experiences that I'm like, how do I take this into a corporate environment? And then it's like, well, I think the energy aspect is a part I really want to introduce, because we're so bound by the physical world. And I think we're missing half the picture. And wouldn't it be wonderful to introduce that at a senior, like CEO level of smaller companies, to be able to help them recognize the interplay? And that makes me excited. Now, I haven't done it yet, so I don't really know how receptive people will be to it. And I think there's a way to approach it. But, I had to try that. I've been trying on different aspects of how do I introduce this? And, oh, maybe I'll just do this, or maybe I'll be, these things. And then it's like, I have to embrace the energy and metaphysical side of myself, because I cannot ignore it anymore, nor do I want to.
As it's, so I can do, and I don't like to do. So Crystal gave me this beautiful analogy. Missing people cases is very hard to me emotionally. Yeah. However, I'm really good at it. And I was like, Crystal, does that mean I have to go solve missing crime cases and things like that? And she's like, just because you cut hair, does that mean you have to be a hairstylist? And I was like, no, that's a really good point, right? But then I'm like, I'm good at it though. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. But I start using that skill in other ways. So I have a friend who is in the police department, and I said, what about training your police guys more on being intuitive, about following your gut instincts and things like that? So that's putting the psychic, although, you can't use that word around corporate kind of people, because it's a huge turnoff. But giving classes to people so that they can kind of really use their intuition too. Yep. And when they're solving cases, when they're going into places, if they should be there, that would be awesome.
I agree. I think, and I totally hear what you're saying about missing persons cases too. There's a girl in Wisconsin who went missing a little over a month ago, and I am constantly drawn to it and yet drained by it.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know if I'm that good. I get hits here and there, but sometimes more than others. In this particular case, nothing's been confirmed. They don't know where she is. And It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to call them up and say, have you checked Chicago or Milwaukee? I'm just,
Yes, you are.
I don't even know who to call. It's like, okay.
I'm psychic.
But yeah, and I do like the show Medium. So I have to say.
So I actually work on my psychic abilities. I took off November and December off of work, and I have nothing to do but watch TV, which is fantastic. So I'm watching Jenny the Medium.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
She's like, I think she's called her the extra large medium or something like that. Yeah, she's a hoot. Like, she's really funny. And where was I going? Oh, so how I practice my psychic skills is when a family comes in, I pause it and I look at the family. Oh. And then I look at all their pictures and I go, oh, she has a male who has crossed over, and it's going to be grandfather, it's going to be a son, or whatever it is. So I actually guess the story before I hit play. And then she'll go, I feel this thing in my chest. And I'm like, pause. Okay. Oh, he had blah, 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 blah. And then I unpause it, right? Because it's how I practice my psychic skills, is through television.
That is an excellent, excellent, excellent idea. I think I do something similar, but it's more with mysteries. And of course, those are scripts, so it's not the same thing at all. But it's like they never give you all the information. And yet I've got probably like a 95 to 98% accuracy with some of these things. And it's like, I'm like right at the beginning, I'm like, I think it's that person. And my husband's like, how could you possibly even know? How can you know this? And I'm like, I don't know. But I love the idea of pausing these and really honing in on what you tap into. And then you get the validation, or you don't. And if you don't, it's okay, because you're still practicing and you're telling the universe you want to practice and receive these gifts, and they'll come.
That's what I did when I was doing energy work. I really wanted to be a medium. So number one, I say I am a medium, so that I enforce the belief that I am a medium. But number two, I would tell my clients I'm a practicing medium, which allows me to be wrong and not have any issues with that.
Oh, sure.
So if I see somebody and I'm like, oh, I see this person and da da da, half the time they would resonate and half the time they wouldn't. And I would say, okay, write it down. If you don't know it, write it down. Because the other part of that is I'm psychic. So I have an issue with previous tense, like if somebody's crossed over, if they haven't crossed over yet, if that makes sense. So I hear energy, I'll get a name, but I don't know if they've crossed over unless somebody tells me that they crossed over. Sometimes I can feel them standing next to me. But anyhow, so I would practice all the time. And that's another way I would do my skills. Today I was at Michael's and this lady started talking to me and I said, oh, she lost her son. How do I tell her that she lost her son because her son's reaching out to her? How do you say that, right? You don't. So she randomly, not so random, starts talking to me. And she mentioned something about going on a cruise. And I said, oh, are you going with your family? She said, it's something like the ones that are left or something like that. And I was like, okay, all right, Amber, how do I narrow it down to the sun? And I'm just waiting. And she talked about her attic. And I said, oh, the tree. She said, my tree's in the basement. I said, well, at least it's not in your attic. You would have to go up there and get it. And she said, well, that's in my son's room. And I was like, oh, opening. How is your son? How old is he? So we opened the door to have a conversation. So even though I don't have to say, I'm psychic or whatever I do, I kind of bounce around to get my own answers and trigger the other person so that I can know if that's spirit talking to me. To me, it's like more practice. You know what I mean? Like I always have these opportunities all around. So I want to gain as much knowledge as I can, or intuitive.
Well, and so how did she handle it when you were able to, did you get to a point where you talked about that he's reaching out?
No, I didn't. I did not. I just let her be.
Well, you have to kind of gauge, right?
I was like, okay. But it was interesting because she wasn't behind me. She was right next to me. And at first I was mad. So I'm like, it took us 20 minutes to get through line.
Oh.
So I thought, is she trying to take my spot? What's this girl doing? Right? Older lady. She's all beautiful and red hat and everything. But she kept like going up to me. And I realized she just wanted to talk to me.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is when you have that energy flow, that connection, strangers talk to you all day long about anything.
Yep. I find that runs through a family line. For me, at least, it's all matriarchal, and it drives my dad crazy because my mom will be anywhere. Doesn't matter where. She could be getting gas. She could be walking. Well, she doesn't really walk down the street, but she could be at any store or restaurant, and people strike up conversations with her. He assumes it's her striking up the conversation with them, but it's really not. And the same thing happens, and I know this because the same thing happens to me. I can just be somewhere, and then people walk up to me and will ask me for directions, or, do you know where this, not like they think I work there, but they just seem to know that I will help them. And then a lot of times I get life stories.
Yeah.
And, that's it, that whole thing about talking to people who clearly are drawn to you for some reason, but still recognizing what boundaries exist. Or should, it's like I get intuitive hits when I'm talking to people, but I don't want to just say, and so you need to do this. It's more
Right.
like asking questions, and at some point, if they feel like they're not particularly open, leaving it at that.
That's right. Lady looked in my cart and she says, "What are you using that mesh for?" And I'm like, "What? What is this?" So her and I started talking, which prompted the lady in front. Lady in back's moving up, and I was like, "Do I have a sign on my forehead that said?" Because I'm irritated. I'm in a 20-minute line for mesh and smelly pine cones. God.
It's really refreshing to hear that you get irritated. I just have to say.
I do.
I do
try
too.
to stay open as possible, but sometimes it's hard. Like, where was I? Oh, as soon as I walked into the store, you feel everybody else's energy. So you're picking up anger, right? I was at Barnes and Noble's and my anxiety picked up. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to get to the checkout and I was like, oh, why do I have anxiety? What is going on? And sometimes it's people who have crossed over. Other times it's really me, and as I walked up in line, the girl in front of me was talking to her dad and she goes, "Stop talking to me, Dad. My anxiety is on full blast right now."
Oh.
And I was like, oh, it's her anxiety. So he looks at me and rolls his eyes like he wants to have this conversation. Why? I don't know. And I was like, oh. And I'm going in my head, I know about anxiety. Should I talk to her about anxiety? Should I say something? Do I say something or don't I say something? But the fact was that it wasn't mine. It was hers. Mm-hmm. So when I'm in public, it's a constant thing going on. Whose energy is it? What's going on?
Yep.
Who am I around?
Yes. And what happens to me is, even though I'm a lot more aware about energy, and energy is really the thing that drew me into the Lightworkers Lab. I've worked with energy in a formal sense. I took a class. I mean, but it was an ongoing class. Like I took 4 of them, and they were not traditional classes, but they were in a university, which is how I entered that realm. But learning about energy balls, learning about chakras and auras and all of that. And I continue to be fascinated at that level, and vibrations and frequencies and how those things affect us. And anyway, that's a rabbit hole, so I'm not going to go on that part. But when I go into a store or something like that, it took me a really long time to recognize that a lot of times when my mood would change, it wasn't my mood. It was me picking up on other people's stuff. But even today, if I'm in a hurry or I'm distracted by other things like a checklist or, like Christmas shopping, for example, going around and I want to get things done by a certain time because I'm traveling and I just want to have this stuff done. If I'm going into the store and I don't really prepare ahead of time for that, I sometimes forget to pay attention to where the energy is coming from. And if it's my stress that I'm feeling, or if it's everybody else's or some other person in particular. And there are certain places when I go there, I feel okay, and I even pick up the energy, and then I leave, and then I'm grouchy. And it's like, what is all of this? And I'm trying to pay a lot more attention to it, but it's still not a default thing for me to go into a place and notice that way, because I have that default thing where I kind of turn things off too. It's like when I'm around a bunch of people, my automatic response is to block, but I don't block everything. And so it's like, then I leave and I'm, what was that?
Like in general, I wonder how big your aura, like I have a huge aura. So I feel like I'm just walking around grabbing people as I walk. But I know, like, people who are introverted, they really keep their aura tight to them, which doesn't affect them so much. And other people, us healers, are like, it's a little bit looser, bigger.
Yeah. Well, and I notice when I'm in stores, I pick up on moods of people without, sometimes I just notice a person and it's like that person is in pain or that person is sad, and I can pick those things up when I'm paying attention. But other times I can walk by and just grab it, I guess. I don't mean to. I mean, I've wondered if I'm the energetic vampire type. I don't believe I am, but I went through this whole mindset of, what is it, me doing that to I don't want their energy.
I'm like going, hey, come here. So at the end of the day, it depends. So even like this morning, I attuned somebody to crystal Reiki, right? So I'm doing an attunement. It's long distance. And at the end, I always cut ties between my energy and their energy. But then I say, any energy that I've left anywhere, I withdraw it back to myself. So if that's in, the etheric field, if that's, I don't care if it's downstairs of me getting mad at my dog for eating my favorite pillow, whatever it may have been, I would recall all of my energy back to me. Because I think that
love that.
Leave energy at places.
Yeah. Well, everybody does. I mean, unless they're doing what you're doing. And I think about that. It's like I pick up on, any place you go, like a doctor's office is where it gets me the most, or hospitals. I had a major anxiety attack visiting a friend in a hospital. I used to work in a hospital, but then so much time had passed, and I'm here and I'm like, I had to like excuse myself to the restroom and just sit in there for a while. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But I think it's so much of that residual energy that, and then the stress and the emotional aspects that are involved, with being at a hospital and all the friends and family who come to visit, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and all of those other things. That the next time I went, I was much more prepared, because I'm like, okay, I have to do some major energy stuff before going in. But I love the idea of having your energy return to you. I certainly do that to release other people's energy for me. And I am preparing to visit my parents, who I visit fairly regularly, and my mom's sister will be there as well. They have a 50th anniversary thing going on. And I had sort of an energetic, I don't know what to call it. It was almost like I had to go to my room, close the door, and just detox, like from the energy levels. They're nice people and everything, but they have kind of an off-like relationship in my view. And there was just so much, I just felt low-level energy there. And so I had to go in my room and just completely detox. Now my aunt has the most frenetic energy on occasion that I've ever experienced in a person. So she really helped me learn that it was her energy that when I visited her once, that I was like, I couldn't be around her because she was just so stressed. And so she's going to be visiting, and I'm like, okay, what can I do to help myself prepare for this energetically beyond just a regular, like, releasing pathological bonds and stuff like that, which is how I had learned how to do it. And one thing I want to practice is allowing, asking for only those things at my vibrational level or higher to be received, and everything else to pass through. I don't even know if I haven't figured out the wording for it. And so I'm, in a sense, asking you if you have any tricks around that, not tricks, but approaches.
So for the people who are tough in my life that, they're family, it's not like you're going to get rid of them. Right. I wish. There's some people that I'm kind of like, oh, how could you be like that? And I always, there's just this, I keep calling it an innocence, and it's a sense of having compassion. And when I look at this person, I'm like, he really can't help himself. Like, he has no awareness of how he behaves or how he acts. And I kind of feel bad for him. It's not even like, it's this compassionate, I really wish you saw what I see.
Yeah.
How can you love yourself more? How can you, because that's really what we all are. In my conversation with God when I was really little, And he explained to me, and yeah, I got angry, right? I was angry about the world events, and I've always been like that. Animals and like global events. I'm very, very aware of big things, even as a small child. And I was like, God, well, why can't you just erase their brains? Like, all you got to do is say reprogram and restart it. And he's like, well, it doesn't happen like that. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't happen like that? Right? And he's like, you have to show them compassion. So it's always stuck with me because that's what I heard, that even people who are so angry, they're angry with themselves. People who, it's like once you get down to that underlining of why they are the way that they are, you get it kind of moved, you know what I mean? Like into this, oh, I feel bad for you now. Like you're a total jerk and I know why. Oh, your parents didn't love you, had abuse, whatever it may be. So I always go back to that innocence of trying to find that love again.
Well, and I love that. I wrote it down, like send them love. And I think the compassion aspect is really great. And I do understand, like for my aunt's example, why she was the way she was. And I think in a sense that what I do sometimes when I have when I'm compassionate, I reach out at an emotional level. And I think that's the empath aspect of things, to the point where I absorb it. And I think for me, being really clear about the compassion and being compassionate is fine. And being in, I don't really like to use the word control, but intentionally sending energy rather than feeling I need to take it on myself.
Right.
And
because
sometimes
you're really her problem.
Right.
She has so much that she has to unbury and go through to find the love for herself.
Yeah.
And she's really tormenting herself.
Yep. There's a lot of people in my family with different elements of that whole thing. So it's like, I'm going to be with all of them at this anniversary celebration. And it's like, and I really try hard not to judge. I want to accept them all, but they don't accept themselves. And I think that it's easy to get hooked into that because I want to help them all, but they don't want to help. They don't want me to help. And I want to help them, but I also know that they're not open to that. So of course I don't push it on them.
Right.
You know, it's like, yep. So
as you keep working, they may be, because
Maybe.
as you stick and do whatever you do, and they have events that change in their lives, all of a sudden they're going to be like, well, what does she do? What is that? Maybe I'll meditate. Maybe I'll move this way. And you kind of inch closer.
I mentioned to my mom, because she was afraid of inviting her sister because she knew that I had a hard time being around her the last time. And I'm like, of course, invite her, yes. And I actually really like her as a person. She's wonderful. It's just the last time she was in a really different place. And so I'm like, well, Mom, I absorb these emotions. And so I have to be really intentional about, my boundaries, and we were talking about who's going to stay in what room. And then she's like, I'd really like to talk more with you about that absorbing energies thing. And I'm like, really? Because that's a first. I think I've mentioned it to her probably 10 times now. And it's just, now maybe she's ready. Yep.
A little closer and a little bit closer.
Yep.
Now, my mom is, I don't complain. When I complain to my mom. If there's something going on, I call my mom. And so she looks at me as I'm only good to complain to, right? Because I'm calling her because I don't like voice my opinion anywhere else. And she's like, Amber, I can't listen to you anymore. If you have problems, you need to go right and talk to God, because throwing them up on me is not going to work. I have my boundaries. I'll talk to you later. Right? So like, who am I going to talk about my family issues with? She sets her boundaries. So then I have to journal to release and let go. And when I do that, I find all these underlining things that have nothing to do with anybody else, but everything to do with me. And then I'm like mad at my mom for making me look at it.
I love that. I do find I write a lot more at my parents' house. It's like, okay, I have to get this out, and there's nobody here I can talk to about these things. And even if I could, they wouldn't really want to hear what I have to say at this point in time. And the last time I was there, I was channel writing a lot, like really powerful messages that had nothing to do with any of these situations, but it it was the prompt for writing. And that it was just, in fact, I'm actually looking forward to that aspect It's like, good, I have the time to do it there, and it's a release, an important one.
Desserts there. Do you guys do like fruitcake or something?
No.
Figgy pudding? There's something about a dessert. You're gonna have to tell me after you do the holiday thing.
Well, my husband makes minced meat pies, which is not meat for anyone who thinks, that word is, I don't understand why they call it that. We do in the past have done Christmas pudding, which he's British.
Hi.
And Christmas pudding is like fruitcake, except it tastes good. The kind I've had, and I haven't particularly cared for here, but Christmas pudding is like this. It's really good. But that's all here, and then my parents don't really do much of anything anymore from the dessert standpoint. So it's like, all right, I don't know what to expect.
That's interesting. I can't wait to hear those for you.
Thank you. Yeah, they're in Tennessee, so I'm in Minnesota. So the things that we did when I was growing up, I grew up in Wisconsin, they don't do anymore, any of it. So it's like, I don't even know if they're going to have a Christmas tree. I suppose they probably will just for this event.
Put my second one up today.
Wow.
Yeah, because my kids decorated the big one, and I looked at it, and I have this controlling issue, and I went, oh my goodness. So then I got another one so I could decorate it for myself.
That is fabulous. I think it's almost like this rite of passage with a Christmas tree. When my daughter would help me decorate when she was younger, I'd let her do it, and then I'd kind of change it because I didn't want to give up that control. And now I gave her some guidelines, which she then blatantly ignored. I'm like, just colored bulbs, you want to kind of mix and match. You don't want them all in one part. And then I'm like, there's like 6 gold bulbs here. I know.
Right, it's all in a clutter. And you're like, so pretty. I'm like,
well, I've gotten to the point where I don't care anymore. It's fine, and it actually, I think in retrospect looks good, but she has her own little tree for her own.
I got tree.
Yeah.
I can't wait. But that was a big surprise today. I was like, I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. Good
for you. That's awesome. So I'm just sitting here thinking of figgy pudding. I have no idea what that even is. Neither does my husband, who, it's a British song, isn't it? And he's like, I don't know what that is.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that song is "We Wish You a Merry Christmas." There is a reference to "Now give us some figgy pudding." It's kind of demanding, really, when you think about the language they use in that music. But anyway, I've always wondered what figgy pudding is.
I have no idea.
I assume it's just figs, and puddings in Britain aren't like Jell-O pudding here in the States. It's like a more solid based, and sometimes puddings are savory and more like a pie. I've learned a lot about British food. It's actually really good. They have a really bad rap for their food, but my husband makes amazing British food.
Isn't what's that guy's name? Hold on. I watch him. Blonde hair. He's mean.
Oh, like
he's a chef.
A chef? Like Gordon Ramsay or not?
Yes.
Is that who you're thinking?
No.
I don't remember.
Maybe not.
He might be. I'll look at the comments coming in. Somebody here knows. I think he might be.
I think he's British.
Yeah.
And
well, we watched some programs recently where they're like, making jokes about, British food and stuff. And it's like, and my dad is like, he just believes that there is no British food that's good. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. There's so many different varieties in Britain, but, and Paul can make them for you. And he's like, yeah, no, that's okay. But anyway.
I love it.
I had mentioned that I don't really respond to comments that I see passing through while we're doing our conversation, but there was one that came up that I just wanted to ask you, because I think it might be relevant, if I can find it now. It had to do with how did you hone your mediumship skills? I can't find the actual question, but I just thought that was a pretty decent question that maybe you'd be willing to.
I hope you like my answer. Because I just pretended that I was one, and then I
Oh,
became.
so fake it till you make it, right?
Yes. So I think because I have such a genuine want to do mediumship, like I generally, I find it very healing for people. I really enjoy connecting in with past loved ones and seeing healing on that level for them. So so it's two things. So I would just start off by saying I'm practicing medium, and then I would look at somebody and you know figure it out. Okay, do I have a female or a male? Is always my first question. Whatever pops up, I get male. So then I'm over on your right side. Do I feel like it's a grandfather, a father, or a friend? So I narrow it down there, and they all feel different because I just know things. That's how it comes to me. I don't ever question it. Right? Don't ever question it. And I would just keep practicing, and it felt like I was using my imagination a lot, but it also felt so right. So it wasn't, I didn't have like these, I didn't see people when I was little, not that I know of, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people would just walk around. I don't remember anybody just walking around like I see now. When I wake up now, I have people that are standing above me, like physical people, kids, like real people there. But I didn't ever think about being a medium. I just had a true, genuine want to be a medium. And I think when I told the universe that, the universe always does, the law of attraction. And if it's in your highest good, you're always there. If you want to be a medium, you probably are a medium. Not everybody wants to be a medium. And to be very honest with you, it scared me for the longest time. So whenever I would do my healing sessions and I scan somebody, I would tap in and say, okay, guys, it's okay if you guys do, if any of the loved ones come through here, only here, and that's it. So if it was a loved one, I could do that. And then I sat in with a paranormal group because I'm like, I can do this. And it scared the bejeebus out of me. Like, I could not do it. I'm sitting there going, oh no, this isn't good. And actually, I even had an investigation here because I'm like, there's somebody here, and there's like 20 people here. There's not one person here. There's tons of people here, right? So I had a true, genuine want. I had an interest in it. And then meditation is the way to go all the time. And I would always say I'm practicing because it's okay to be wrong. It's okay, right? You're not doing anything wrong. And then you just get good at it. So I hope it helps.
Oh, I think it does. I'm curious about, as far as meditation goes, did you use a program or something to help you get into it? Or is it something you just decided to do and did?
So I play this game with me where I close my eyes and I try really hard not to think. And if I think, I go, gotcha. And then I sit there and go blank. And then if I had another thought, it was like, I caught it again. And after I catch it so many times, I don't have any thoughts at all.
Ooh.
I always see colors. One of the ways to turn off the chatter in the head, I would use my ears to listen. So I'm not thinking anymore. I'm really concentrating on listening to what's around me and things like that. And then that kind of zones me out. So as I'm meditating, I see faces. And I never knew what that was. I'm like, ooh, that eye came in, eye came out. I see a profile, I see this. And it didn't occur to me that that's the spirit world looking in on me and I'm looking in on them.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. I'm like, what is this? But I really genuinely can sit down and I love to meditate. I love to connect. It's not this thing where, you know how people in the beginning, they go, oh, I got to meditate for 10 minutes. Here I'm like, okay, give me an hour and a half. Like, I know that once I get in, it's going to be hard to get out.
Wow. I've been able to meditate in the past. In fact, like in January of this year, I just sat down and started doing it, which was kind of bizarre to me. I've always had a hard time doing it before then. And then I just sat down and did it. But then when I went to Tennessee to visit my parents, I got out of it and had a hard time coming back in. So this time I'm using a program where it's a guided meditation, but it's like 50 plus sessions of it. And he has you do some really interesting visualization and imaging. And that gets me to wonder about, so there's the meditation where there are no thoughts, but then there are also meditations to meditate on a problem or to recognize what you're experiencing, which involves some thought. Do you always prefer to do the kind without thinking, or are there variations that you try out?
So you also meditate when you're driving. You know, when you're driving and you miss your exit because you're just so into your thoughts, really not your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So my best way to get a hold of me, the spirit knows this, is when I'm drying my hair. So it takes me 15 minutes. I've got thick hair. So it takes me 15 minutes to dry my hair, right? So I'm drying it. And when I'm drying it, my mind goes blank because it's just a tedious thing that you do all the time. You're drying your hair. And when my mind goes blank, that's when spirit comes in to me more. So that's really where I catch them at. So they know as soon as I start blow drying my hair that it's like a green light and everybody can talk to me. So it's my favorite type of meditation, blow drying my hair.
That's awesome. I've done that with brushing my teeth. I have an electric toothbrush, and it's, it tells me when to change quadrants. So it's like I don't have to put any thought into it. And my mind goes blank. In fact, I intentionally make it a Zen moment so that I can relax, especially before going to sleep. But it's also what I do when I wake up in the morning. So it's a really good bookend to the day. I love that about drying your hair. I let mine dry naturally, so that doesn't work for me personally. But I think it's because you've got that sound too then, and it's a pretty constant white noise sound.
Yeah, and it just puts me right out. I'm like, la, 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 la. My grandmother died, and I got to give a eulogy for her. And I've always wondered, if I did a good job or not. And I was drying my hair, getting ready that day to do the eulogy. And I felt a woman come in, and I was like, oh, there's a woman, but I'm still like in my own little la 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 mood. So this woman comes in, and I said, who are you? And she says, Shirley. And I was like, Shirley? And she said, I helped your grandmother cross over. And I almost dropped my hair dryer. And I look up into the unknown, and I said, give me 1 minute. And I grab my cell phone and I text my mother. Does grandma know a Shirley? I have a dead woman here who says that she helped her cross over. And my like, actually, grandma has a sister named Shirley, but also my dad has a sister named Shirley, both crossed over. Let me know which one you're talking to. And I was like, looking at my phone, I was like, that's crazy. So I'm looking into the air. I was like, excuse me, Shirley, can you tell me who you are? And I didn't hear anything. And so I go to do my eulogy over at my grandmother's thing. And my aunt, Sally, who I don't talk to, like I haven't talked to her in years, she comes to me and shows me this picture. And I said, what is this picture? She goes, doesn't this woman look like you? And she holds up my high school picture and this woman's picture. And I said, yes, we look alike. Who is that? She said, that's your Aunt Shirley. I was like, Aunt Shirley, she's on your grandmother's side. I was like, thank you. So I told my mom, I'm like, look, that's the evidence. Aunt Shirley, to your grandmom's side. So that was cool. It's just something.
I just love those types of moments. They're okay. So I'll use serendipity because I love that, and they're just serendipitous moments that connect things like that for us, and they're magical. And I love when that happens. Mm-hmm. What a cool experience!
The other day, I had one where my dad crossed over 2014. Right, my dad's been married 5 times.
Wow!
I have photos of me growing up because my mom wouldn't take pictures because it's my dad. My dad's married to these 5 women. So these women haven't given me any photos of me growing up. So I said out loud, I would love to have photos of me growing up. And my stepmom, my second stepmom, who I haven't seen in 30 some years, calls me and says, Amber, I am in the area. She moved to Florida, apparently. I haven't talked to her in 30 years. I'm in the area. I found all of these pictures of you. Do you mind if I stop over and drop them off? And I'm sitting here like, what? I haven't seen her since I was 2 years old. And you're going to drop off pictures to me? I was like, Dad, you did that.
That's wonderful. Well, and do you ever get to the point where you're like, of course you do. Of course you have pictures because I just asked and there they are.
Right. As soon as it leaves your mouth, it's like spirit world, universe, everybody hears you and you get it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Me too. I want to have a show where we're just talking about those experiences because I love them so much and I want to document them and have them recorded. But today you had said that maybe 10 minutes early would be a good time for you to leave, and we're at that time. And I can't believe how quickly the time has passed.
Right?
So yeah, it's like, what? No, we still have more to say. We have more to talk about. So I'll have to have you on the show again sometime next year.
Fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I really appreciate this conversation, and talking with you is always a joy. And so, everybody who's watching, I'll have Amber's information is in the comments section, but I'll also have that on the show notes. So when I post the show notes later today, you can find all of that stuff. I encourage you to check her out. She's pretty awesome, if you haven't already noticed. Okay, well, bye, and have fun picking up your kids.